Welcome to Cultic Cube, where we cube religiously. We make you better at cube and make your cube better. Vehicle is a relatively recent addition to Magic's stable of card subtypes. Though vehicles can be powerful, there are only a handful that warrant consideration for most cube environments. The two goals of this video are to help cube drafters to understand which vehicles belong in which decks and how highly to take them, and to help curators decide which vehicles are suitable for their cube. The short version is that different vehicles are suited to different archetypes, though control and combo benefit least from this card category. The premier vehicles are Smuggler's Copter, followed by Aethersphere Harvester. Kaladesh introduced vehicles to the world, and like most of WotC's artifact-centric sets, Kaladesh caused problems for competitive Magic. The first Star City Games Open that included Kaladesh found 32 copies of Smuggler's Copter in the top 8. This feat had not occurred since Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth in 2011, where the top 8 ran playsets of both Jace the Mind Sculptor and Preordain. Between this tournament and Pro Tour Kaladesh in Honolulu, where 16 Copters were in the top 8, this vehicle was featured in 8 different archetypes, from aggro to control to combo, and in decks that represented each color. Smuggler's Copter was ultimately banned in Standard. We are here to talk Cube, of course, not Standard Seasons of yore, but there are a few lessons to be drawn from this history. First, vehicles can be extremely powerful. The best of them are suited to high-power environments, and may be format warping in lower-power ones. Second, vehicles are useful in a number of different archetypes, though individual ones are best suited to particular strategies. Third, we already have the most powerful vehicles that we are likely to see in the foreseeable future, given the problems that attended their first appearance. To date, 28 vehicles have been printed, though only a handful of these are worth considering for most cube environments. Let's dive in. In powerful legacy and vintage cube environments, none of the equipment are tier 0, and I would be reluctant to first pick any of them. 2, I consider tier 1, the better of which is Smuggler's Copter. Copter has broad potential utility, such that it can be a discard outlet or a colorless looter for control, but the decks in which it fits best are aggro and mid-range. Such decks, much more than control or combo, more reliably have early creatures to crew the vehicle. The looting ability helps these decks that often otherwise struggle with card advantage. But most importantly, this is a colorless watchwolf with wings that is difficult to kill and that provides resilience against board wipes. Aethersphere Harvester is the next best vehicle. Like Copter, one could conceivably put it in many different styles of deck, including aggressive ones. However, it is best suited to foiling aggressive strategies. This card is stellar at drawing out games. It comes down relatively early and has an absurdly cheap crew requirement. It likely gains you 6 life. Finally, it has a superb defensive body, and 5 toughness might as well be 1,000,000 as far as most damage-based spells are concerned. You do not need any other energy enablers in a deck for this card to be top shelf. Topping the next tier is Fleet Wheel Cruiser. Vehicles occupy similar design space as equipment, as both artifact subtypes offer an upgrade to one's creatures. In an aggro deck, equipment such as Grafted War Gear can be thought of as roughly equivalent to a 3/2 haste creature for 3 mana. Vehicles, though, tend to be worse in aggro than their cousins, as they cannot attack on the turn that they are cast. Cruiser solves that drawback spectacularly, not only by having haste, but by skipping the crew requirement for the first swing. Furthermore, when one is rebuilding an emptied board, the card is a reasonable top deck, which cannot be said of many vehicles. The icing on the cake is that the card has trample. Cruiser exhibits similar play patterns to Skizik, as Usman Jamil explains well in his Kaladesh set review. Sky Sovereign, console flagship, is underrated in my experience. It is a miniature Inferno Titan that has immediate board impact. Its evasive stats command respect, though its crew requirement is at the upper limit of what I find reasonable. My friend SirFunchalot turned me on to this card when he called it one of the better green 5 CMC creatures. The card is at its best in mid-range, where it presents a resilient, evasive, elf-fueled threat. Let us move on to the next tier of vehicles, which are worth considering but are not necessarily slam dunks in one's cube or one's deck. Mizzium Tank, a recent offering from War of the Spark, is better than I thought it would be. It gives mono-red real resiliency, and it is amazing in an Izzet Spellslinger deck that has cheap interaction and cantrips. It is easy to crew, whether for 1 or for 0, and the pump is a real threat. Even decks that are more controlling like this card, as attacking into an untapped tank and untapped mana is risky for an opponent. Any lightning bolt likely becomes a 2-for-1 when it enables an ambush block. Ultimately, though, I like tank best in decks that want to turn the team sideways. Heart of Kirin plays in novel design space by using Planeswalker loyalty as a resource. I love this idea, and I hope that Wizards continues to explore this economy. Heart of Kirin feels powerful when animated by a walker. Unfortunately, Heart of Kirin is elsewise mediocre. Adding a card to one's deck that converts 3 power to 4 in the air is not amazing. Given that this vehicle is much more likely to be crewed by creatures than by walkers, I do not care for this card. It may improve a bit in environments with very high planeswalker density, but I remain skeptical of the card's value. Untethered Express is unique among all the vehicles that we are discussing for being an uncommon, and thus peasant legal. The card is a perfectly respectable beater with a low crew cost. 4 CMC places it squarely in the land of mid-range, though it requires support to do anything at all, which is not really what one wants from mid-curve threats. It plays similarly to Raging Ravine, as a snowballing beater who is much better on offense than on defense. I would avoid this vehicle outside lower power environments. Cultivator's Caravan needed just a little tweak to be solid. In high power environments, manoliths are simply too slow, but I did not like this card even in my modern cube. If this vehicle crewed for 2, then it might be in the conversation for me. Conqueror's Galleon gets a special mention just because I cube it pre-flipped to its backside as a land rather than a vehicle. Conqueror's Foothold is a superb utility land that is a discard outlet, a card advantage engine, and a repeatable regrowth effect in games that have stalled out badly. It is powerful, but not first pick material in my Legacy cube. For a discussion of the Ixalan DFC, including those that I recommend running pre-flipped, click on the video thumbnail at top left. Let's keep hanging out and chatting cube.